Let's start with the topic of giftedness and talent. What is meant by the term giftedness? Giftedness means exceptional general ability shown in superior performance in a wide variety of areas. Whereas talent is a narrower term. It denotes remarkable ability in a specific field. For example, one may be talented in music or maybe in spiritualistic area, or one could be a talented person in the field of dance. So there is a specific field. Sometimes talented people, they show an exceptional ability, and such people are known as prodigies. I will also like to tell you that what are the characteristics of gifted children. Gifted children, my dear students, they have advanced logical thinking, questioning and problem solving behavior. They show a very high speed in processing information. They have an advanced level of original and creative thinking, and they are highly intrinsically motivated. That means the motivation comes from within. Independent thinking and preference for solitary academic activities. Now let me also update you regarding the types of intelligence tests. The first category is the individual versus group test. Individual test, as the name suggests, it can be administered to one person at a time, whereas the group test can be administered to several people simultaneously. In the case of individual test, the test administrator needs to establish a good rapport with the subject and should be sensitive to his feelings, to his words, to his expressions. But here, in the case of group tests, such a thing is not required, and sometimes the administrator does not get that wonderful opportunity to be familiar with the subject's feelings. Let's come to the next category, which is verbal, non-verbal and performance tests. What is meant by a verbal test? The verbal test requires the subjects to give verbal responses, either orally or in a written format. It is meant only for those people who are literate. Coming to the next one, which is non-verbal. Non-verbal tests use pictures or illustrations, like in Raven's progressive matrices. The subject chooses an incomplete pattern and then further selects the right pattern from the various alternatives. It is meant for illiterates. It is applicable to both literates as well as for illiterates. Now coming to the performance test. The performance test involves manipulation of objects and other material to perform a task. Written language in the case of performance test is not at all necessary. This also is applicable for illiterates as well. Coming to culture fair and culture bias test. Culture fair, as the name indicates, are culturally appropriate and give equal weightage to all the cultures. There is minimum use of language. They use more of pictures and performance. For example, Catel's culture fair test, Raven's progressive matrices. Coming to culture biased. As the word indicates, culture biased, they are basically favorable to a particular group, and there is more usage of language. The next topic that I am going to deal with is culture and intelligence. In class 11th, you have already understood the concept of culture. Culture is anything that involves customs, beliefs, traditions, attitudes, and achievement in the field of art as well as culture. Now, in the context of this culture, a Russian psychologist by the name of Vygotsky said that culture provides a social context where people understand the world around them and grow within that particular world. Cultures have a lifespan of their own. They grow, they change in the process, and specify the end product of successful intellectual development. In this context, I am going to differentiate between technological and integral intelligence. Technological intelligence is more applicable in Western societies because these societies are technologically more advanced and they develop the skills of generalization and abstraction, attention, mental manipulation, analysis, performance, speed, and achievement orientation among their children. The integral intelligence is more applicable to our country, to our society, because intelligence is viewed from a holistic perspective. Holistic means overall perspective, where attention is given not only to the cognitive activities which involve reasoning, manipulation, analysis, problem solving, but even to the non-cognitive processes. You must have heard of the Sanskrit word buddhi. This word buddhi is used for describing intelligence in the Indian context. According to the Indian context, intelligence comprises of the following skills. First is cognitive competence, then we have social competence, emotional competence, and entrepreneurial competence. Let me make you understand the concept of cognitive competence. Cognitive competence basically involves problem solving, understanding, discrimination, and communication. Social competence, to be competent in the social area. For example, in India, we give a lot of weightage to respecting elders, showing love and care and affection towards the younger ones, and also respecting law and order. Emotional competence. Here, a person needs to understand each other's feelings, needs to undertake self-regulation, self-control, self-monitoring of one's emotions with honesty and politeness. Entrepreneurial competence. Who is an entrepreneur? Entrepreneur means an owner, a person who has started off his own business or any kind of work on his own. Such a kind of competence involves hard work, lot of commitment towards the field that you are doing. Your patience, loyalty, perseverance, and goal-oriented behavior play a lot of importance in entrepreneurial competence. Emotional intelligence, expressed as EQ or emotional quotient, it refers to the ability to monitor one's own and others' emotions. Students, this concept of emotional intelligence was given by Salovey and Mayer, who described emotional intelligence as the ability to not only monitor one's emotions and others' emotions, but to discriminate them and also to use this information to guide one's thinking and others. Emotional intelligence is receiving a lot of attention for educators of today because it is beneficial for academic achievement. It encourages cooperative behavior among the students and reduces their anti-social activities. These programs are very useful to help the students to prepare them to face challenges of life outside the classroom. So, students who are affected by stress and challenges, for them, emotional intelligence is receiving a lot of attention for the educators. Now we come to the next topic, which is aptitude test. Aptitude tests are of two types. One is independent test and the other is referred to as multiple test. In the independent test, we can name a few. For example, tests for clerical aptitude, tests for numerical aptitude, mechanical aptitude, for typing, and they are basically specialized tests. On the other hand, the multiple aptitude tests are basically in the form of test batteries. For example, differential aptitude test, general aptitude test battery, and Armed Forces Vocational Aptitude Battery. Coming to the topic of creativity and intelligence. You must have learned the concepts of creative thinking and creativity in class 11th. Well, creativity has been found to be determined by heredity and environment. That is by nature and nurture. Limits of creative potential are set by heredity. That means whatever you inherit from your parents, there is a limit to that creative potential. Whereas your environmental factors, they stimulate the development of creativity. That is the kind of opportunities or the background that you have, they nurture your creative abilities. Coming to the next concept of relationship between creativity and intelligence. Terman in 1920 pointed out that people with high IQ are not necessarily creative, and likewise creative ideas can come from people who did not have a very high IQ. This means the same person can be both creative as well as intelligent, but it is not necessary that intelligent ones have to be creative. So intelligence does not determine creativity. Now, I would like you to focus upon the difference between creativity tests and intelligence tests. Since creativity involves a lot of expressions of ideas, opinions, etc., the tests are also open-ended. The intelligence test, however, they conclude on only one answer, so that is why it is called a close-ended test. The creative tests involve divergent thinking. For example, if you want to test a person's creativity, you can ask him any question. For example, what are the uses of a glass tumbler? So he can have various kind of answers to that particular question. But in intelligence tests, if you want to test the intelligence of a person, for example, for a series like 2, 4, 6, 8, and when you ask the person the next number, it has to be 10. So it involves convergent thinking. So there is a single answer to a problem. So creativity involves expressiveness of spontaneity, whereas the intelligence test does not provide any kind of scope for expression of spontaneity. With this, we come to an end to the chapter of variations in psychological attributes.